contemplative practices in my time. And I feel that all of them have this commonality of embodiment. I've got a dear friend who is a real expert in the field of mindfulness education. And in some of his healing work, he shared with me that in the depths of one session, he had this insight that it all comes down to just being with, right? If there's like one truth of being that arrived for him, that we can always lean into, it's this being with. And the more and more I practice, the more and more I feel this witness, that this interconnectedness, this remembrance that this identification or perception of separate, identification with or perception of separate self is just like a bubble on the surface of the true depths of our being. So I'm going to share a little bit about some of what is deep in my heart, and because I feel, we touched on the theme of justice yesterday and leadership, and I want to share a little about what I'm passionate about in my work, because I feel like it very much connects to justice. I was very fortunate to land after 30 years of, well, it's been 30 years of contemplative practice now, but probably about 10 years ago, I started working in the mindfulness and education field with a nonprofit called Peace in Schools, working in high schools. And actually, Rob Rosa, who spoke yesterday, was an early board member. And Kara Jolingo came into my classroom in Portland, Oregon, and taught my students walking meditation. So it's been lovely to have those connections revived this weekend. But at a certain point a few years ago, this was around 2019, I encountered a particular alchemical transmission from the Jungian tradition, from a man called Jeffrey Raff. And he taught this practice which he called ally work, which was about recognizing that each of us has this counterpart. We could name it in many ways. We could call it a higher self, or a true nature, an essential being. He used the language of the ally. And what he had developed was this written dialogic practice, right? Again, returning to this relationality, how can we, first of all, recognize or inquire into the potentiality for meeting this deeper part of ourselves, just like in the exercise with Dr. Yolanda Celia Ruiz, we explored how to meet the identity of water. How can we meet the identity, the personification, the image of our true nature? And we could, in one way, call that the capital S self, and bring that into dialogue with our personal, our egoic self. And that led me into deeper explorations, because Jeffrey Raff, this Jungian, who I learned the practice from, he said that he felt that nobody quite understood what he had touched on as deeply as this 13th century mystic, Ibn Arabi from the Sufi tradition. And so I started reading about Ibn Arabi, and that's been a whole incredible journey of its own. Now I'm in a practice group where we do a line-by-line reading of Ibn Arabi's longest work. He's an incredible person. I'm 100% certain that in the coming decades, more and more people will know that name, just as they know Rumi, a man who, probably other than some maybe medical scholars or legal scholars, was the most prolific prose writer in the Arabic language, and also the most prolific poetry writer in the Arabic language. And this work we're reading is, he wrote about 400 books, and this is a 10,000-page book. And it was all inspired by his encounter with his essential self, in which he had a dialogical, communicative relationship with, and that encounter happened as he was circling the Kaaba in Mecca. In this whole 10,000-page book, he saw imprinted, etched on the body of this being that he called the youth. And, in my language from this Jungian tradition, we might call the ally. So this invitation of meeting this deeper part of ourselves can open up, let's say, the text, the liturgy of our own being in ways we might not even realize is possible. And so this is an invitation to enter in what the Sufi tradition they call the imaginal world. And this is seen as a dimension of being that is so vast that if you were to take all of the cosmos that we can witness through our senses, and if you were to symbolize all of this cosmos with a golden ring, that ring compared to the size of the imaginal world would be like a small golden ring grown into a vast desert. So I'm so excited about this kind of work because I feel like there's been incredible development of somatic work in the contemplative field, incredible development of awareness-based work. At its core, we could say knowing ourselves as awareness. But there's this amazing bridge, as a professor at the University of Murcia in Spain happens to be where Ibn Arabi was born. He said at a conference I was at recently in Oxford University, without the symbolic dimension of consciousness, people are lost. And I think this symbolic dimension of consciousness is correlated somehow to what Dr. Dan Siegel was referring to in the first session as this plane of possibility, where we can imagine ourselves from a deeper reality into ways of being that our everyday mind cannot conceive of. So part of my practice is simply to, in settings like these, is simply to acknowledge this aspect, this domain of the contemplative field. And after me, David Chase will be a fellow from the second cohort, will be curating a conversation around the living earth. And I think there's something incredibly powerful to consider what happens when we put the living earth in relationship with the earth of imagination, because these two are also one. So my invitation for you in this moment, because we're here on the final day of this lovely conference with a real array and a spectrum of insights and education and offerings. And so we can take a moment to reflect on what are we each looking to integrate from this conference into our lives. This process of integration is always key in our contemplative practice, because we can have the most amazing insights, but sometimes the hardest part is integrating it into our life, right? With all the resistances of the conditioned mind. So I invite you, if you have something to write down, that's lovely, or even type it down. But just taking a moment to reflect, what's one learning that you would like to integrate in your life from this conference so far? And if you'd like to, please feel free to type that into the chat. I'm going to type mine in. Slowness. And there's a particular meaning of that for me. I was really struck by how Arowana Hayashi just had this real slowness and presence of being. And I felt that too with Karjolingo. And that's something I want to integrate more into my life, whether it is being in a professional role as a contemplative, or just being with any human that I encounter in my day. So we've got openness and, that beautiful teaching about planting seeds rather than harvesting. And those are coming for future generations. And looking back, and we're harvesting those seeds a long time ago. Just being contemplative and remembering inner wisdom. Interbecoming with ally, all living and loving universes. I love that. And really, once we extend this notion of ally, we can be looking at each other and seeing the ally, seeing each other's face as the ally. This is something that's been so deep for me, and feeling into in this practice of ally work is the beautiful at onceness of our shared being and our uniqueness. The incredible differentiation of each of us, at the same time, the sharedness of our being. And this, I think, is part of the richness of this imaginal work. It is, as they say in the Sufi tradition, and this is hard to believe, it's kind of mind-blowing, but it's said that the divine is raining down on us 70,000 tajalli, divine insights, a day. It's an interesting number, because if you know the neuroscience, it would be said that the number of human thoughts we have a day is 40 to 70,000. So perhaps there's some counterpart where in any moment we could be identified with a conditioned thought or receptive to a divine insight. I want to, by the way, Dina, I saw you in Montreal. I really miss those Montreal bagels. Best in the world. And I say that as a former New Yorker. It's no competition. What I wanted to do is, Marsha, I hope I didn't upset you there. What I wanted to do is just bring in, we might have time for 2 or 3 voices. Would anybody be willing to bring your spirit, your voice into the conversation by sharing a little more about what you'd like to integrate, or why it's meaningful to you, why you picked what you chose for integration? Anybody be willing to share? You can use the raise your hand button via the raise hand via the react button at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to share. Remember, I'm very patient because I've taught in high school classrooms, so I'll wait you out. Asha, I see your hand up.
It's just so nice to be in community with everyone. I'm so glad that I chose to be here, right? Because we all have choice. The reason why I chose openness, when I think about openness, for me, I think about having an open heart and also having an open mind. And what I have found over this year, given what's happening in this country, I live in the United States, and in this world at large, I find myself sometimes contracting. And so it's been a daily practice for me to cultivate and to continue to plant and sow those seeds of an open heart, because I truly believe, and I talk to my students about this, that where you can have an open heart, the open mind will follow, and vice versa, right? So many times we have these self-limiting thoughts of what we believe should be or how it should look, right? And if we can just, cultivate, right, that place of an open heart. I'm actually currently reading the book by Thich Nhat Hanh, Fear, and he talks about all of this and why we tend to close our heart off, right, and our mind off. And a lot of it comes from this place of fear. So that's what I'm going to continue to cultivate. It's a process, right? It's a practice. So once again, thank you. And this has just been a wonderful community to be part of. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that share, Asha. And there's such a simplicity and depth in that phrase, having an open heart. And as you say, it's a practice, and in times like these, it is not surprising that we constrict. I am very sensitive that this year, 2025, for me, and my feeling is for many people, has been one of the most intense and challenging times for us to be living through. And so just really appreciate this intention to integrate the open heart. Guy, I see your hand. I want to make sure we bring your voice in here.
Thank you, and greetings to everyone from Michigan in the USA. And I typed into the comments, love serving love, and that was referencing what John Kabat-Zinn and there was a discussion with some of the people, and he brought us to that conclusion that we can be love serving love through the mechanism of love, is I think how he put it. And it was a really beautiful line of that came through that. So I just wanted to put that forth, that it was a great beginning of the conference for me, and we're still resonating with that.
Thank you, Guy. It's a very powerful phrase, love, serving love. Patrice, we're almost out of time, but if you could briefly share, I'd love to hear your voice too.
Yes, thank you. Just very quickly, the thing that really struck me, and speaking particularly about the issues of the world today and the U.S. in particular, the only way out is through, and the only way through is together. And that really spoke to me. We need the community. So that's all I wanted to say about it, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Patrice. So we can put those all together with the open heart, love, serving love together. It's very much a beautiful distillation of the essence, the meaning of this conference of being together. Just want to thank you all for inviting me in to hold space.